Hey guys, Matt Mitrich, the alternate historian. I am here today with my lovely guest. This is Elena. She's my wife.
Hi.
She's watching The Man in the High Castle with me, and that is what we're doing today. We're going to be reviewing the first episode, and we're going to review every other episode as well. I wanted Elena to be here with me because, as you guys know, I'm a huge alternate history fan. I've read the book. I even have the Folio Society edition, which is very nice. It's got some really nice pictures in it and everything like that. I'm a big fan of Phil K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle. I was really excited about Amazon making adaptation. And that's kind of why I was a little worried about doing this by myself, because I feel like I might watch this show through sort of rose-colored glasses. I give a lot of breaks because I sort of wanted to succeed. And I wanted somebody, though, with me who might enjoy the show, might enjoy watching it, or at least tolerate watching it if in case it turns bad, who didn't know that much about alternate history, who can judge the show on its merits and not be a fanboy about it like myself. So I thought, Elena is available. She's here. And, I didn't have to drive anywhere with anybody else or, anything like that. It was a lot easier to do it. So here we're going. We're going to review episode 1, actually. This was the original pilot episode that was released several months ago. It was for free. Anybody could watch it. It just had to log into Amazon. And we decided to watch it again because it has been several months. And we're going to spoil everything. So no offense. But we talked about it and we decided the show's been out for months now. It's been free for everybody. If you haven't watched it, that's on you. And besides, it's the first episode. It's not episode 10 and we're ruining everything. This is where everything gets introduced. So again, if you're really worried about spoilers, stop watching the review now. But seriously, this is the first freaking episode. Just watch the goddamn show if you're that concerned about it. So yeah, let's begin. Episode 1. Elena, what is episode 1? What is it about?
Basically, it starts off showing off several different characters and where they are in their lives after World War II. So it takes place in the early 1960s.
1962, I think. It was specifically.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Yeah.
And we have several characters starting their lives in several different places, how the war affected them. Starting their life, not starting, but just showing where they are and how the wars affected them. One character, she is interested in Asian culture, whereas her mother's upset about it because...
What's the name of the character? I don't remember her name. It's Alexa Davos's, that actress. She's the one playing it. I forget his name.
Did it start with a T?
Possibly.
Yeah.
No, her sister Trudy.
Her sister was Trudy, that's right.
And we see her run into Trudy because Trudy's been gone for a while, and she seems, from what briefly we have with her, spoiler, she died. She got involved with the resistance, and Alexa's character actually saw her sister get gunned down by the Japanese police. Because remember, in case you guys don't know, maybe we should back up a little bit. In case you guys don't know, this is an alternate history where the Allies lost World War II. The United States has been split between the Japanese-controlled West Coast, while most of America from the Great Plains all the way to the East Coast is under the control of the Nazis. There is a small a buffer zone between them, the neutral zone, and but that's about it. That's sort of the world we're looking in right now. Like I said, it's 1960s. It's heavily implied that Hitler is dying. He's getting old, and he's sick, and he's dying. And there's
Parkinson's.
They
think it might be Parkinson's.
They suggest it's Parkinson's. But
they suggest that.
No, well, Michael J. Fox has Parkinson's, and he isn't dying per se. He's been around for years now.
Back in the 60s, though, the medicine was different.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just saying, just having Parkinson's doesn't mean you might die sooner. Who knows? I don't know. We'll have to look into that. But anyway, and there's a power struggle going on right now in the Nazi Reich. It's implied that Himmler and I think it was Goebbels, I don't even know how to pronounce these German evil names. not right. That Germans have evil names, just the specific Germans now have evil connotations to their names. Sorry. Goebbels, whatever. They're jockeying for power. There was suggestion that maybe Rommel might be a better Fuhrer if Hitler was a kick the bucket. But anyway, there's concern because if either of those other two guys win, they're going to start a war with Japan, which will go nuclear. There's a lot of concern that they're going to drop the bomb and nuke the West Coast. Although, I gotta wonder, it's never really implied. Did you hear whether Japan had nuclear bombs? I would assume...
I don't think they ever mentioned that. I think that they focused on the Germans and what they had and showed a lot of their weapons and discussed it a lot, but they didn't really
But yeah, I don't remember
focus
them.
on Japan yet.
They seemed very worried that Japan would just get annihilated and they would have no defense. But I was wondering, I got to assume that after seeing because they talk about Washington being nuked, and that's what led to like one of the surrender of the United States. You would think that the Japanese would start investing in that kind of stuff, or something, and so that the Germans would have other reasons not to nuke the West Coast and the rest of the Japanese Empire simply because Hitler wasn't in power. They would not want to nuke it because they would fear that they would get nuked themselves. Because if you can easily nuke Tokyo, guess what? I'm pretty sure the Japanese can easily nuke Berlin. Again, I don't know. Maybe they don't have it, but I don't understand if there's a good reason for it. Maybe it'll be explained. Maybe they do have it, and they're just afraid of nuclear war. But it seemed like they were really pushing that the only thing protecting the Japanese was Hitler, which I thought was kind of odd. But
well, yeah, it was interesting because like they make a statement about how Hitler is so in love with the Japanese culture and likes those kind of people. They made a comment about that, which was interesting because he wanted to create the perfect race, and that's the whole point of the concentration camps, etc. in the first place. And it was that was kind of interesting.
And while certainly at the time of the war, when you need an ally, the Japanese were considered honorary Aryans. Obviously in the Man in the High Castle in the -- after they won the war, there's now obviously big tensions between them, and you hear some of the Nazi German characters are saying pretty racist things about the Japanese behind their backs, and the Japanese, from the few characters we're into, they seem to know it.
Yeah, it's like they know not to trust them. They're not like, these are our best friends. And
no, they realize that they think that. Yeah, they know that they know the Germans think that they're beneath them, but so that's an interesting tension through the show. But again, it brings me back to my whole: why are the Japanese so worried that the only thing protecting them is Hitler? Don't they have their own nuclear bombs? Mm-hmm. Why the Germans realize that if they try nuking the Japanese, they'll get nuked themselves? What, do they think the Japanese bombs won't work or something like that? It's when I first saw this episode a long time ago, I wrote a review of it on Amazing Stories. I was in love with this thing. I fairly found too many issues, but now that we're starting to watch this a little bit more, we watched it again. I started noticing a few things, and that was one other issue. One other issue too, getting back to the actual story, Alexa and her sister Trudy. Trudy, before she dies, hands off these film reels to Alexa's character, and after Trudy gets gunned down the street and Alexa's character sees it, she doesn't really have a reaction.
She was upset. Oh, I would be devastated if I watched my sister get killed, let alone just knowing she died in general.
Yeah, we do learn that they're only half sisters, but from what I can,
if you grew up together, you grew up together, you're sisters.
The brief couple times we saw them before Trudy got killed, they seemed like they really liked each other.
Right.
Like they got along.
Right.
So my point is, it's like she had no reaction, and I understand she didn't want to bring attention to herself with the cops, but you think she would put her hand up to her mouth or cry or something?
Go home and cry. She went home. Yeah.
And then sort of went and watched the video and then started crying. But I think she was crying less because her sister died and more because she saw this video, which was something I want to touch on, which I thought was actually, I'm doing a lot of criticism of the show right now, but this was actually something I really enjoyed. The film reel was titled "The Grasshopper Lies Heavy," and it's all these newsreel footage showing the Allies winning the war. And obviously this is an alternate history within an alternate history, and this was brought up in the book as well. The Grasshopper Lies Heavy was a book that showed the Allies winning World War II. Granted, in the book, it goes on more from that, because not only it shows the Allies winning, but also shows Britain becoming in a Cold War with the United States. And so it's implied in the book that there's 3 timelines. There's the timeline of the story, which is the Nazis won World War II. There's the timeline of The Grasshopper Lies Heavy, which is where the Allies won World War II, but the British and the United States are in a Cold War. And then there's a timeline of the Reader, which is the Allies won the war, but then there's a Cold War between the Soviets and the Americans. And it's heavily implied in the book that the actual real timeline, the right timeline, is the one where Britain and the United States are enemies. So it's an interesting, it's a very interesting read about the nature of reality and everything like that. And I don't know if they're going to get to that. What I wanted to say was I liked what they did with The Grasshopper Lies Heavy, because in the book, The Grasshopper Lies Heavy was also a book. Which worked because you're reading a book and they're talking about a book and you have to read parts from a book. But when you're doing an adaptation, when it's a visual medium, I liked it how they also made then the Grasshopper Lice a visual medium, because you wouldn't have the same power if you just saw Alexa's character reading a book, because you wouldn't see anything. You would have to. She would have to tell you that. And again, show, don't tell in a visual medium. You don't have to rely on a text. You can just show things happening. So why not just show?
And it was shocking to see the Nazis, building crumble, or
to those characters.
And for us to watch it, I was like, yes, that's the way it's supposed to be. I got excited for her. And
is it though?
Is it? Yeah, I know. And
because, like I said, in the book, the Grasshopper Lice Heavy tells more of the future than just the changing point of the war. We just see them winning the war, but what if we start seeing film footage later? Because it's mentioned that the Man in the High Castle, because the Man in the High Castle is the author of the Grasshopper Lice Heavy, both in the book and also in the show. He's known. It seems like people know him pretty well, that he makes a lot of anti-fascist films like The Grasshopper Lies Heavy. So it's very possible that we might see more films, I'm hoping, where we see an alternate history within that as well, which I think would really tie in well with when Phil K. Dick, the author of The Man in High Castle, his theme of the nature of reality and everything like that. And I think it'll just be fun to just play around some more alternate. I'm not sure if they're going to do one where the Britain is America's Cold War enemy, but just doing something will be fun.
I do have two questions.
Oh, yeah.
Where I was confused about, or we're not sure, maybe I'm going to get told later, is if it's a spoiler, don't spoil it, just cut me off. First of all, where's Italy in all this? If Japan is on the West Coast and there's a neutral zone and Germany's on the East Coast, where's Italy? If they were such a big deal in real history, what was happened?
I hate to boast your bubble, but Italy really wasn't that big of a deal back in World War II.
We Italian men are the best. Okay, so let's...
Italian men's also backed a genocidal...
I know, terrible. Just terrible. Totally embarrassing. Totally embarrassing.
Not your finest hour.
No.
No one calls that generation...
We'll stick to making pasta.
No one calls that generation the greatest generation.
No. We'll stick to our pasta making. It's okay.
Darling, no offense to any Italians who might be watching, but the Italians really didn't do that much in the war. They tried to invade Greece. They needed the Germans' help to finish that. They tried to take North Africa from the British. They needed the Germans' help to prevent that, and even then they still got kicked out. And then later, as the war was ending, they got invaded by the Allies, and they switched sides, and then got invaded by Germany, and it was all a huge mess. But yeah, that's what happened in real time. In this history, my guess is they are probably just a minor ally of Germany. Okay. Certainly on Germany's side, I don't see them taking Japan's side. I don't think they have any territories in North or South America. Maybe they have Canada, maybe the Northwest Territories.
I was just wondering if there's a map I haven't seen in the book or something.
In the book, it's they mention how they drain the Mediterranean and turn it into farmland. And if you think that's smart, it isn't. It isn't. It would create one of the largest deserts in the world. Well, or just make the Sahara a little bit bigger. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. I think I wrote an article about that in my blog. Maybe I'll link to that as well. And if you see maps that have been made based on people interpreting that, you see them controlling the Mediterranean basin that's now empty. Pretty stupid. I'm not sure why Dick did that. But yeah, whatever. That's what's going on. Italy's not really important. But we should talk a little bit more about the story. Anywho, after Alexa's character, I wish I remembered her name, but I can't. After Alexa's character watches the video, she gets into an argument with her boyfriend. We'll get to him, but let's go finish her storyline. She decides to take Trudy's place because Trudy was going to go to the neutral zone. I think it was Cannon City? Yeah, I think it was Cannon City was the name of the place. And she's going to take the video there, and she's supposed to meet up with somebody there, possibly with the Resistance, possibly somebody else. We don't know. They were very vague on who she exactly mean there. In fact, she was even told by someone that she ran to Resistance at the bus station, saying that he didn't even give names or say who
they'll find you.
Just they will find you.
They will find you.
It makes you interesting, like who is they and why would they be looking for her? And that's pretty much where she runs into then. While she gets to Kansas City, she runs into Joe Blake. Now, Joe Blake. We first went to Joe Blake in New York City under Nazi controlling, and he's the first character we actually run into. The first thing we see is him watching like a movie, and you see this like news, like you never remember like you see movies where you see other characters going to movies in the olden times, and there's all this like stuff beforehand, and they got that guy talking and narrating, and often sometimes a little propaganda-y. But they're talking about how great our country is and everything is going to be awesome, and they cut to the American flag, except for instead of the stars, you have a white swastika. Right. And I think that was actually a very powerful message. And later you see him walking through Times Square, and there's Nazi, there's swastikas everywhere, there's guys, in the usual, like, the jackbooted thugs and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And he goes to this machine shop, and it's actually Resistance headquarters, and he's going to volunteer, and he's supposed to drive a truck to Cannon City, and he doesn't know, he's just told that it's coffee makers, but he doesn't know exactly what it is. Even
later, he opens them, and technically,
they are coffee makers.
The shipment is.
But anyway, the problem is the Nazis attack, he gets away, but the Resistance leader is interrogated by another character, and I should have done some research and remember names. Next episode, I'm definitely going to make a little card with everybody's names.
Their names, yeah.
Because
too many people.
I'm just having trouble remembering it. But anyway, the bad guy from A Knight's Tale, because that's
yes, I know. They always make that actor like he's the terrible person.
And he's
the poor guy.
His last name's Smith. He's an SS officer, and he tortures the guy, and he doesn't really, but he's not really asking questions. He's just torturing him because he knows.
Or he knows the answers.
He already knows the answer. He knows what they're carrying. He knows where it's going, and.
How does he know is what I think.
He just wants to make sure the Resistance doesn't know he knows. That's why he's torturing the guy, because he plans to kill him by beating him to death and then throw him out into the street so the Resistance picks him up and realize it, and then they'll assume that they got away. And it's anyway. You see Joe. I like following the Joe character. I really do. For variety was one because I think they had one of the most terrifying scenes in the movie with him. I mean, seeing your sister get gunned down by the Japanese secret police is one thing, but there was this one scene where his car gets a flat tire, his truck gets a flat tire, I should say, and this cop comes. And you're worried he's going to get caught, but the cop's just this kind of like overweight guy who's a soldier gone to seed, and he's
and Black's character's 26-year-old.
Yeah, and the cop's like, hey,
fit guy.
Hey, you got a
flat tire. Let me help you.
And the guy the cop just kind of helps him change the tire and everything like that.
Gives him some lunch.
He gives him lunch, and it's just like
egg salad.
Wow, this is such a normal scene, and then you start seeing this ash fall. And
Joe's my God, I wanted to cry.
And
this is so sad.
And Joe's like, what the hell is this? And the cop's like, very nonchalantly, very like,
it's not a big deal.
He says, oh, it's the hospital. Every day at this time, on
Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays, yeah. They burn the cripples.
We know that. We don't know people's names. We know that now.
They build the cripples and the infirms and the drags on the stake.
And the people that are,
it's just horrifying. It reminds you that it's sort of like, there's this concept called the Banality of Evil, and it sort of came up. There was this Adolf Eichmann. He was this guy who was involved with the final solution to the Holocaust. He kind of was one of the big organizers behind it. And anyway, he escaped after the fall of the Third Reich, and he was later captured by the Israeli intelligence forces and put on trial. And people always, when people saw him on trial, they saw this guy who looked like just an old man. He wasn't a monster. He didn't look like the usual, like, no, Mr. Bond, we expect you to die. He was a bureaucrat, but he still did something evil. He helped organize all the logistics behind one of the worst massacres of humanity. And I think that one scene captured that sort of like episode of our own history. It showed you that in this world, people are just so used to evil being done, it doesn't even faze them anymore. It's just normal life. Right. That guy couldn't think of a world where you don't burn the cripples. It
reminds you of who really won, and that made you really sad.
Yeah, and it shows you kind of like how much the country has lost as well. And
I also it made me think like that people that were not supposed to truly believe they were doing the right thing because it continued after even the war being over. It wasn't just a war type thing to do.
What do you mean?
Like, it wasn't just like, oh, we're capturing our enemies and putting them in concentration camps or whatever. It was, we truly believe we need to get rid of these people.
Well, yeah.
And that's going to be part of life in the society we're going to live in. And that kind of horrified me and freaked me out. Like,
well, it happened in history. Yeah, it actually happened.
But like, I guess thinking
it's not going further because they lost the war.
My thought is like, oh my gosh, it just kept going and going and going. And even, with them winning. And I guess because I have cousins who are like, have different disabilities and things, it made me really, really sad.
Yeah. So, anywho, Joe Blakens gets to Kansas City. He runs into Alexa's character. They talk. They seem to be hitting it off. At some point, though, he has to go make a phone call. He ends up calling the Smith, the SS guy, and it turns out...
He makes a phone call when he meets Alexa's character.
He makes a phone call after he meets Alexa.
After at the very end, yeah.
Anywho, if I may continue.
Sorry.
And it turns out that Joe is actually working for the Nazis. He's going undercover. And also he found out as well that the thing he's carrying is a copy of The Grasshopper Lies Heavy. So
it was underneath
it seems like there's some sort of plan to bring all these copies to this one city in the neutral zone. And so, yeah, it leaves you on a really big, like, oh my god, he's a Nazi? So it's interesting where it's going to go with that. Let's see, is there any other characters of note? I think there's 2 characters of note we should probably mention. One was Alexa's character's boyfriend.
Right, he's Jewish.
He is Jewish. His name was, oh god, what was his name? I think his name was Frank, wasn't it? Yeah, it's
yeah.
Frank. Yeah, it's your new character's name.
It was Frank. And he was, his grandfather was Jewish.
He's a quarter Jewish on his grandfather, but you don't get the sense that he's actually practicing.
No.
But again, that's one of the ridiculous things about Nazi ideology. An atheist could be considered a Jew to them simply because their grandparent was a Jew. Not because someone could not practice Judaism and still be considered a Jew. And it's one of those scratch heads moments, and it's just like, but wait.
Like,
and I know some people...
what he's doing.
And I know people will often argue about this with me. They're saying, like, well, because Jews tend to not to really marry and have kids aside their religion. And again, while that might not be that common, it's not exactly impossible. I have a friend who's has one parent who's Jewish, another parent who's not, and they're not a practicing Jew. So it's like, is he really Jewish, or is it more important to like find out where that family was from originally, and is that really his ethnicity? Judaism is a religion, not ethnicity to me. So that's kind of how I go with it.
Right, because if he was Jewish, and they just would have said in the show, "Oh, he's Jewish," instead of they were like, "On my grandfather's side, I'm Jewish." You know,
yeah, he just had a grandfather, but to
like
the
on
Nazis,
my dad's side, I'm Italian. So what?
But to the Nazis, it sees as a race, and they were wrong. So I'm not sure why in our modern 21st century you still have people who still consider it a race or ethnicity of sorts, when the last time people really focused on that led to 5 million people dying.
Right, but in the show, it's only 1960, and the Nazis won, so that mentality, just like a couple other things, have not gone away.
True, but I like lecturing and ranting at people on the internet, so it's fine. Anywho, so he originally tries to tell Alexa's character, don't. You have to get rid of this, destroy it. You have to denounce your sister, while she's like, no, we have to fight. You gotta sympathize with him a little bit, because he's thinking,
he's
like,
terrified.
Yeah,
he's absolutely terrified.
I don't
blame him.
want to be captured by the people occupying our country, people who may turn me over to the Germans. He's literally got a death sentence on his head, and it's also a little bit unfair because she was unwilling to have kids because she was worried about that.
Right, she was worried about having Jewish children.
I thought that was a little odd for her then suddenly to take this sort of like holier than thou attitude about courage, because it's like, all right, I'm sorry your sister died, but you didn't want to have kids because of my grandparent. Now that I'm trying to save ourselves because of my grandparent, maybe you should calm down. Maybe you should think about this for a second. And granted, it's a criticism of the show because it shows like maybe it's just a character. Maybe she had to change her heart after watching her sister die. But at the same time, it's like it seems a little unfair to be like, I don't know if I want to have kids.
Yeah, I want to criticize her too, along with what you're saying. She's afraid of having kids because of his Jewish background. But
although she tries to argue it's not much about the background, it's about the world they live in. But at the same time, it's like...
Well, and then there's, she wants to remember her sister's honor and finish what her sister started, even though she totally doesn't
understand. She has no idea what's going on.
She has no understanding. Yeah, she has no idea what's going on. And at the same time, her father died fighting the Nazis and the Japanese,
but she didn't.
And she's in love with the Asian culture, and she could care less that that's what her father died fighting for. Not that the Asian culture is not a beautiful thing to enjoy. I mean, I truly, there's tons of things to enjoy from it. But in this world, she's, practicing a form of martial arts,
Keto.
Right? And she brings her mom like some tea and. She's, that kind of, because her mom has arthritis and that kind of thing. So she has no problem embracing a culture that her father fought, but she, wants to at the same time honor then her sister's memory and help with her sister's fighting. So I find little contradictory to what she believes or in terms of family value or supporting the family.
I guess what we're trying to get at is that her character had it almost seemed like a 180 change. Now maybe watching the death of your sister at the hands of people you once respected could do that, but it just seems a little like rush, flippy-floppy. I guess a little too quick, and maybe just for not being understanding. But the last character she really focused on, and again, is another person I don't remember his name. He was the trade minister of Japan. He works in the Pacific States, which is what the Japanese occupied West Coast is called, and he focuses on the I Ching. Which is an oracle. You throw some sticks, you see where they land, and you read this thing. It tells you kind of like the future. Anywho, he's preparing because the Crown Prince of Japan is coming to visit, and he's working on making sure everything's going swell, and making sure that the Germans are going to be involved as well. At the same time, there's a lot of concern because of the whole nuclear war we're talking about. We're getting lot of that focus of that story from his perspective. And he even met with somebody within the German military. Who's this colonel who's warning him about this and who wants it even less than the Japanese do, but doesn't seem to have any options. It's like even this one faction that wants peace doesn't seem to know what to do. Like they're like, you're on your own kind of thing. It's like we don't want it to happen either, but if shit hits the fan, you're on your own, buddy. Again, I think that character probably more than anybody is going to give us the big perspective. I think the other characters will be focusing on more small issues, especially the man in the high castle, the grasshopper lies heavy, that mystery. But that mystery is going to play back against the geopolitics that are happening as there's a power struggle happening in the Third Reich, and and there's a threat of nuclear war. This is the guy who's going to be giving us that perspective. So I like that. I like how we're getting both the big and little perspective. And it'll be interesting to see more from that guy as well. And I wish I knew his name because there was a lot of people in there. One of the cast members actually, I apologize again for not knowing your name. I did not prepare for this review at all. I'll be better next time, guys. I promise. One of the cast members of the show actually mentioned me on Twitter, and I think it was the guy, the inspector, the Japanese inspector, who actually was. Trying to find Alexa's character and everything like that. I think that was him. I want to say it was him. I'll double check and promise, guys. I'm so sorry too, dude. I'm so sorry. You're a very nice guy, and I really liked it. But anyway,
really bad with names. That's okay. When I introduced him to my family, he doesn't remember anyone either. I took all these
notes, and I didn't write down a single person's
name. He never remembers anyone's names.
Anyway.
He couldn't name any of my cousins if he tried.
Let's cut to the chase. Elena, what do you think of the episode in general?
I thought it was a good introductory episode because it left me with tons of questions, which made me want to watch more. Especially since I haven't read the book and I obviously don't know the answers. I don't know if they're going to go off the book or change the book. And I'll read it later and I'll figure that out. But I just love that there were so many unanswered questions, like why was Alexa's character, why did Trudy have to go somewhere? What are they going to do with the films? Like, I'm more interested in the little people than the government stuff, because that's just the type of person I am when it comes to the type of shows I like to watch. I don't know, I just don't really care about politicians talking as much as I enjoy seeing how what happened is impacting the lives of everyday people. And maybe that's the home ec major in me, that I care about how people are living their lives after this way of living is going on. So that's what I enjoyed.
I like how the one character's name we have no problem with is the character who died and we'll never see again. But anywho, after watching it now for a second time, I think if I had to write another text review of this, I probably would be a lot less positive. The show does have some flaws. Granted, this was their pilot episode. This is the thing they did before they filmed the rest of the season. So this was just their test run. Maybe they did things a little bit differently. A lot of people said the second episode was great. I haven't watched that yet. As a filming review, we haven't watched that yet.
Just one.
But I think I still want to watch the rest of the show. I like it has a lot of strengths, and I'd like to see at the end. I haven't seen too much talk of a season 2, but then again, I haven't even watched all of season 1 yet. But so far, reviews I've seen have been mostly good. There have been a couple.
I've heard a few reviews and been happy.
Yeah. I have seen a couple of reviews that have been a little much more critical than we're being right now. But otherwise, it was a great first episode. It was a great pilot. I'm glad Amazon picked it up, and I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of the episodes. And we'll both be back for reviews. And yeah, if you guys like what we're doing, like us, subscribe, comment, support me on Patreon. Elena has a blog. Elena, you want to talk about that?
I have a blog, The Catholic Home Economist, so I talk about home economic type situations and different things that are going on in the home ec world, and have a Catholic perspective on them.
All right. Well, I'm Matt Mitrich, the Ultimate Historian. This is my wife, Elena Mitrich. We'll be back. Bye.
Bye.